History of Union Square. Union Square is a historic intersection and surrounding neighborhood in Manhattan, New York City, located where Broadway and the former Bowery Road, now 4th Avenue, came together in the early 19th century. Its name denotes that here was the union of the two principal thoroughfares of the island. When John Randel was surveying the island in preparation for the Commissioner's Plan of 1811, the Bloomingdale Road, now Broadway, angled away from the Bowery at an acute angle. Because it would have been difficult to develop buildings from this angle, the commissioners decided to form square at the Union. In 1815, by act of the state legislature, this former Potter's Field became a public common for the city, at first named Union Place. Originally Union Place was supposed to extend from 10th to 17th Streets. Several city officials objected that Union Place was too large and requested that it be discontinued, and in 1814, the New York State Legislature acted to downsize the area by making 14th Street the southern boundary. It was under these constraints that architect Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi submitted his designs, which were approved. A fountain was built in the center of Union Square to receive water from the Croton Aqueduct, completed in October 1842. In 1845, as the square finally began to fill with affluent houses, $116,000 was spent in paving the surrounding streets and planting the square. Union Square would also live up to its name in the spirit of the people, becoming one of the most well-known meeting places for the masses, which are inevitable since the 4, 5, 6, L, N, R, and Q trains converge in the sprawling train station below. Its iconic statue of President George Washington on horseback has long been one of the most identifiable landmarks, and a symbol of the freedom to congregate under the banner of American liberty. Union Square Park has served as home base for countless community events and festivals, from the first Labor Day Parade in 1882 to workers' rallies in the 1930s to the first Earth Day in 1970 to the current wildly popular Green Market. This former burial ground has seamlessly transitioned from a town square to a bustling city park, and as such, it is the deserved home of statues depicting distinguished men like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Mohandas Gandhi, and Marquis de Lafayette. Social and political activism. The park has historically been the start or the end point for many political demonstrations. Although the park was known for its labor union rallies and for the large 1861 gathering in support of Union troops, it was actually named for its location at the union of Bloomingdale Road, now Broadway, and Eastern Post Road, now extinct, decades before these gatherings. On April 20, 1861, soon after the fall of Fort Sumter, Major Robert Anderson, who was the commander of Fort Sumter, brought the Fort Sumter flag that flew at the fort to the park. The flag was flown from the George Washington statue, gathering patriotic rally of perhaps 250,000 people that is thought to have been the largest public gathering in North America up to that time. The flag was shortly removed after to be used as a patriotic fundraiser by being auctioned across the country repeatedly. In the summer of 1864, the north side of the square was the site of the Metropolitan Fair. Union Square has been a frequent gathering point for radicals of all stripes to make speeches or demonstrate. In 1865, the recently formed Irish Republican Fenian Brotherhood came out publicly and rented Dr. John Moffat's brownstone row house at 32 East 17th Street, next to the Everett House Hotel facing the north side of the square, for the capital of the government in exile, they declared. On September 5, 1882, in the first Labor Day celebration, a crowd of at least 10,000 workers paraded up Broadway and filed past the reviewing stand at Union Square. On March 28, 1908, an anarchist set off a bomb in Union Square, which only killed himself and another man. In 1893, Emma Goldman took the stage at Union Square to make her free bread speech to a crowd of overworked garment workers. She also addressed a crowd in 1916 on the need for free access to birth control, which was banned by the Comstock laws. Her visits to Union Square pulled hundreds of followers. Some of these rallies resulted in her arrest. Union Square has been used as a platform to raise awareness about the Black Lives Matter movement, such as during the George Floyd protests in New York City in 2020. The square's shopping district saw strikes in the S. Klein and Orbach department stores in 1934. White-collar workers were among the worst paid in Great Depression-era New York City, with union memberships being highly discouraged by store managers and often seen as fire-able offenses. These strikes often involved acts of disobedience by the workers, as many of them did not want to lose their jobs. This period saw Union Square as a gathering point for many of the city's socialist and communist groups. The centennial of Union Square was seen as a thinly veiled effort to displace those elements with its draping of the square with flags and police demonstrations of anti-protester drills. About 170 years Union Square has been a gathering place for commerce, for entertainment, for labor and political events, and for recreation. The park owes its name to its location at the intersection, or union, of two major roads in New York City, Bloomingdale Road, now Broadway, and Bowery Road, now 4th Avenue. When the commissioners' plan, the famous gridiron of Manhattan streets and avenues, was projected in 1807, the former Potter's Field at this intersection was designated as Union Place. The site was authorized by the state legislature as a public place in 1831 and acquired by the city of New York in 1833. On July 19, 1839, Union Square opened to the public. Its paths, situated among lushly planted grounds, were inspired by the fashionable residential squares of London. The design emphasized the park's oval shape, enclosed by an iron picket fence, and focused on a large central fountain, which was installed for the opening of the Croton Aqueduct in 1842. As New York City's downtown expanded northward, Union Square became an important commercial and residential center. Around its borders sprang up houses, hotels, stores, banks, offices, manufacturing establishments, Tammany Hall, and a variety of cultural facilities, including music auditoria, theaters, and lecture halls. The grounds of Union Square have frequently served as a choice location for public meetings, including parades, labor protests, political rallies, and official celebrations such as the Great Metropolitan Fair of the U.S. Sanitary Commission in 1864. In 1871, Parks Engineer-in-Chief M.A. Kellogg and acting landscape gardener E.A. Pollard collaborated on a new plan for Union Square. A year later the park was redesigned by landscape architects Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. They removed the enclosing fence and hedge, planted a variety of hardy trees, widened the sidewalks, and created a muster ground and reviewing stand to meet the public requirement of mass meetings. 10 years later, Union Square played a central role in the first Labor Day celebration. On September 5, 1882, a crowd of at least 10,000 workers paraded up Broadway and filed past the reviewing stand at Union Square. As the procession passed the stand, Robert Price of Lanackening, Maryland said to Richard Griffiths, the general worthy foreman of the Knights of Labor, "This is Labor Day in earnest." Uncle Dick. On June 28, 1894, President Grover Cleveland signed the legislation which made Labor Day a national holiday. In 1928-29, Union Square was demolished to accommodate a new underground concourse for the subway. Alterations made in the 1920s and 1930s included the straightening of park paths, the construction of a colonnaded pavilion, and the dedication of the Independence, Charles F. Murphy Memorial, Flagstaff, 1926, sculpted by Anthony DeFrancisi. Earlier monuments in the park include George Washington, 1856, Henry Kirk Brown, Abraham Lincoln, 1868, also Brown, Marquis de Lafayette, 1873, by Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, and the James Fountain, 1881, by Karl Adolf Dondorf. Since 1976, the Union Square Green Market has served as a local landmark, offering a cornucopia of fresh food and plants on the north side of the park, where a flower market flourished over a century ago. Threatened by general misuse, deterioration, and the presence of drug dealers in the 1970s, Union Square has recently undergone a dramatic transformation. In 1985, major renovations under Mayor Edward I Koch included creating a new plaza at the south end of the park, relocating paths to make the park more accessible, planting a central lawn, and installing new lighting and 2 subway kiosks. In 1986, a monument to Indian political leader and social reformer Mohandas Gandhi, 1986, by Kantalal B. Patel, was dedicated on a traffic island southwest of the main park. 2 new playgrounds were constructed in 1993-94, and a restaurant opened in the sunken courtyard outside the pavilion in 1994. In 1997, the United States Department of the Interior designated Union Square Park as a National Historic Landmark because of its significance in American labor history. Plans are underway to extend the park line south 14th Street, and to incorporate in the park the traffic island on which the Gandhi statue now stands.
If you help me pay the overdraft,